Well, I can't stand here publicly without acknowledging my teachers, my professors. This is a great opportunity to thank you all for everything that you taught me, particularly John Dufresne, who headed my thesis committee, and Lynn Barrett and Bruce Harvey, who served on that committee. Also my classmates, because I learned a lot from you as well. Diane, Patricia, who else is here? All of you. As Deborah said, I'm working on revising my thesis, which is a novel based on Pride and Prejudice. And I'm going to read from chapter 30, which is kind of square in the middle of the novel, so it's going to require some setup. So indulge me for a minute. The novel's called Unruly Guests, and it's about a Nicaraguan family of immigrants in Miami around 2004 through 2008. And those of you who are familiar with Pride and Prejudice know that the Bennet family needed to marry off the daughters so that because they couldn't inherit the family land, they needed to marry well. Well, in this version, the family needs to marry the kids off to get green cards so they can stay in the United States. The protagonist is named Eddie Arguello. He's the lone U.S. citizen in the family. He fled Nicaragua when he was 16 years old and came to Miami because the Sandinistas were grabbing 16-year-old boys off the street and forcing them into service. He made his way here with a plan to bring his younger brother over. Unfortunately, his younger brother went missing, and the family never did know what happened to him. They did find his body at some point, buried in a shallow grave near the hills, the foothills of the mountains in the north of Nicaragua. But that haunts Eddie throughout the novel. One of the things that really drives him is his desire to keep his family together, his far-flung family, his family here in Miami, sisters that they're trying to get green cards for, and the family that's in Nicaragua. And this is the primary thing that drives him. And it's at this point in the novel, it's kind of tearing him apart a little bit. One of the ways that he tries to keep everything together is to reacquire land that had once belonged to the family in Nicaragua on an island called Ometepe, which is a beautiful island in the middle of Lake Nicaragua, which is one of the largest lakes in the world. This island is so big that it actually has two volcanoes that are fused at the base. One is dormant and one is live. The family had a ranch there. They lost it during the revolution. Somehow it fell in the hands of a wealthy land baron, and Eddie and his father have been trying to get that land back without success. And as this chapter begins, Eddie has gotten a call from his younger sister in Nicaragua telling him that their father, his physical and mental health are failing, and he will not be brought to reason to sign over the licenses for the two businesses that he runs so that the family can continue to make a living. And she begs Eddie to come visit, and he agrees at this point in his life where he's feeling all these stresses. So I'm going to read an abridged version of this chapter. The descent was gradual, but Eddie felt the Nicaraguan earth's tug on his innermost organs from the moment he boarded the plane in Miami. As many times as he'd flown, the simple physics of it all still amazed him, how gravity seemed to reverse, or at least allow itself to be defied. The heavy fuselage lifting from the ground and rising through a mass he was told was there, but seemed not. An unmass, a nothingness so strong it could lift and hold the undeniable somethingness of winged steel transporting more bodies than lived in most Nicaraguan villages. The same nothingness known to rip roofs from houses, palms from Bahamas, Dorothy's from Kansas, to be hurled over rainbows, dashed against emerald cities, then whisked back to dusk and dust again. It all conformed to logic, he knew, but it seemed to deny and defy it, to fuck with it and to fuck it. Spaces, places, wondrously, horrendously, merging and splitting, times stopping and reversing, and advancing and coinciding, and only people, loved ones, aging, inevitably, relentlessly, inevitably. He thinks, today I'm a quark. I I leap light years in instants, linger lifetimes in nanoseconds, span spaces, places, and times, no times at all, like a tiny gargantuan bird, a garza, heron, a guarda barranco, turquoise-browed motmot, a toucan, wings so wide they cross seas and time zones, connect continent to continent, now floating, now soaring, now hovering, now diving, clawed feet, small as staple removers, big as backhoe jaws on Jovian soil, soon to touch down, each in a different place at once or once again. Mostly, he thought, he needed a drink. Cold water would do, a shot of rum, flor de caña, Nicaragua's best, even better. And at this point, Eddie lands, and Luz Andrea, his younger sister, who lives in Nicaragua, and their father meet him to pick him up at the airport. As Luz slid behind the wheel, Eddie opened the shotgun door for Papa, prepared to hop in the truck bed to guard the luggage from highway robbers. To Eddie's surprise, Papa climbed with great effort in back and settled between a duffel bag and valise, resisting with a simple no and a firm shake of the head Eddie's insistence that he ride in the cab. He feels safer back there, Luz Andrea said as she dodged a barefoot girl holding a baby and hawking tamarindo, then pulled onto the highway. He keeps saying he's seeing things that he knows aren't there, but they scare him anyway. And he says it's worse in the cab, so what can you do? Eddie asked, what does he see? He doesn't say, she answered, but it happens more and more. Sometimes he's so scared he just cries. Poor Mama. She tries to get him help, but you know how she is. Her helping only makes it worse. Maybe you can get it out of him. We're all so... Hijo de puta, she shouted as she laid on the horn and swerved around a slow-moving bus, then sped up as she took a roundabout and hurtled southwest toward home. Through the dust of the rear window, Papa bounced among the luggage, looking grainy and tinged with sepia. Eddie wished to reach through and comfort him, not sure who him was. Papa seeming a bit of a stranger, Eddie unsure if it was Papa who had changed or if it was Eddie, or neither. Only time and distance, warping the atmosphere through which they moved, the way heat rises from summer pavement and ripples the air, that devil something nothingness in between, connecting or separating things. Now they arrive home, and Eddie's greeted by his family, he's about to have a heart-to-heart talk with his father. As the horizon reeled the sun down toward it, and the town prettied its face for the night's Holy Monday festivities, Eddie talked with his father in the garage where the old man dispensed his propane and popsicles for the family's living. Mama, dressed in her pale lime bata, her hair salt and pepper twisted tight in pink curlers, hung laundry in the courtyard, within sight but just beyond earshot of the men. Eddie sat on a battered but sturdy desk chair, Papa on a bench he just assembled from plywood atop 2 empty propane canisters. The old man's shoulders slumped even more than usual, his crown bald head, fringed with hair as black as it had ever been, hanging nearly to his chest, his elbows pressed against his thighs. "¿Qué tal, Papa?" Eddie said. "What's upsetting you?" Papa grumbled that business kept dying. "How many times can a corpse die?" he said, and bemoaned the heavy weight upon him to support the family on next to no income. He thanked God for the dollars Eddie and sister sent monthly from Miami, but lamented there was no one to help him run the business, and with money missing from the cash box, money always missing from the cash box. "But Luz Andrea wants to help," Eddie said. "She knows the business. We all want to help. Know what I think?" He scooted forward and bounced the ham end of a fist off his father's knee. "We need to start planning, talking about putting Luz Andrea's name on the business licenses, putting her name and Mama's on the bank accounts, getting some..." Papa's voice rose sharply in pitch, volume, and force. "That puta! She thinks she can run the business. I can run this business." Eddie flinched. The language shocked him. Papa would yell, yes, but he never threw obscenities, not at his children. Papa scrambled to his feet. the leather soles of his spit-shined Oxfords slipping on the concrete floor. "But the money," he cried. "The money's gone." He stumbled to the desk and pawed at the locked drawer. "I know it was here. Someone took it. Your sister, La Ladrona, and your mother, they're all taking the money." He staggered back a step and swayed, his body and voice losing steam, his mind still turning in place. Eddie stood and guided him back to the desk chair, then took Papa's seat on the bench, now facing Papa, and over Papa's shoulder, Mama, who stole quick glances between the damp sheets, bleached clean and white and fluttering in a hot wind. There's more, if I have more time. Skipping ahead, Eddie is able to calm his father down and get him to agree to go on a family outing for Holy Week festivities. They're having dinner, iguana stew, when the lights go out, which prompted Eddie's nephew to grab a box of fireworks and rush out in the middle of the street, where others had rushed out with fireworks as well, and they're shooting. The entire town is in the street now shooting off fireworks. Eddie thinks that he can recognize some of the boys in the haze. They remind him of himself and his younger brother Miguelito, and boys that he had grown up with in Nicaragua. Bernardo and his shadow boys rushed to light a row of 6 rockets. In every distance, flashes and pops, whirls and whistles and whizzes. Between flashes, Eddie could almost see himself goofing with Rigo and Miguelito and Julian and Eddie's cousins Cornelio and Jaime. Miguelito, always the first to light the fuse, when armed Nika boys were only playing, when the blast and smell of burning gunpowder only meant fun. Up the street, small clouds hung on the east like twin volcano peaks. A whistle and flash, and red sparks spewed now like lava. "Mira, Papa," Eddie called to his father, who stood, hands in pockets, behind him. "Just like Ometepe, that's Madeira, the dead one, on the right, Concepcion el Despierto on the left." Papa stared at the formation morphing slowly in the windless sky. He swayed for a time, hands still in pockets, then turned with a sharp, dismissive wave toward the ground and staggered down the street, away from the town center. Eddie rushed to stop him, then slowed to join him instead. They walked for a time in silence, Eddie hanging back just enough to let his father lead, resisting the impulse to ask where they were going, as if his father knew. Some blocks away, not far from where the pavement petered out, giving way to dirt roads and dust fields, Papa leaned a hand against a fence post, his head and torso bent forward as if he were catching his breath. Eddie asked, "You ready to turn back?" Papa swatted at the ground and stumbled on, stopping soon at a stone gate. "Do you want to go here?" Eddie asked, the same way he'd addressed his beloved Mayor, his beloved beagle from his boyhood, who'd lead young Eddie to the door when she wanted out, or to her empty bowl when she ached for food or drink. Papa walked through the gate without a word, and Eddie followed, knowing now where they were headed. His guest confirmed when Papa stopped at Miguelito's grave and stared and swayed, hands in pockets. In the eastern sky, smoke and water clouds moved, the wind picking up now, blowing sparks across the deep, empty dark, lifting and carrying the voices of laughing, singing, carousing boys, and the howls of baying dogs, and its own shifting nothingness, sparks and howls and rowdy boys, mixing it up now with stars, La Gran Isla de Ometepe somewhere beyond, alive and dead and calling like